Imagine getting like a push notification on your phone.
Oh, like a modern smartphone alert.
Yeah, exactly. But this alert is telling you that someone miles and miles away is dying.
Wow. Okay, that's dark.
Right. But then years later, history actually records your supernatural vision of this event as a documented bureaucratic fact.
That's just wild to think about.
It really is. Well, welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, our mission is to unpack a stack of historical sources detailing the life of one highly complex figure.
Don Bosco.
Exactly, Don Bosco. But we are doing it through a very unusual, I guess you could call it a surgical cross-section.
Yeah, the framing here is so unique.
Right. We are looking at a collection of wildly different events that all miraculously collided on the exact same calendar date.
July 18th.
Yep, July 18th across 4 different decades. So we are going to challenge how you view historical records today.
Because it's not just a standard timeline we're looking at.
No, not at all. We are looking at what happens when history documents the utterly unexplainable right alongside the most tedious everyday administrative paperwork.
The mystical and the mundane just sitting next to each other in the files.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with a baseline of isolation in the mountains.
Yeah, that physical isolation is crucial, for understanding everything that follows.
Right.
Because before we get into the massive institutional trauma of his later years, you have to look at the environment that fueled him.
So true. And the first source drops us into July 18th, 1861.
Right, 1861.
Don Bosco is at his annual spiritual retreat up at the mountain solitude of St. Ignatius's shrine.
And it's a very remote setting.
Very remote. But the historical note from this specific day in 1861 is actually incredibly mundane.
Like surprisingly normal.
Yeah. A man named Chevalier Frederick Aurelia writes a letter to the oratory prefect.
Which is essentially the operations manager of Don Bosco's youth center back in the city, right?
Exactly. A guy named Father Victor Alicinati. And the letter basically just says, the mountain air is working.
Just a standard health update.
Yeah. It's restoring Don Bosco's physical strength. It paints a picture of a guy who simply needs a break from the grind, goes to the mountains, breathes some fresh air, and recovers.
It really establishes St. Ignatius's shrine as this grounded place of physical and spiritual restoration.
Right.
It's far removed from the noise of the city. And that geographical separation, it's vital context for the phenomena that happens next.
Because it happens exactly 1 year later.
Exactly 1 year later, on the exact same date, in that exact same remote mountain setting.
Okay, so fast forward 365 days to July 18th, 1862.
He's back at the shrine.
He is. Don Bosco is back at the mountain shrine for another retreat. But this time, the historical log completely abandons the mundane and takes a sharp turn into the supernatural.
Yeah, it really escalates.
On this day, an 18-year-old boy named Bernard Castelagner dies at his home in Chieri.
And just to clarify for everyone, Chieri is...
Oh, right. Chieri is miles and miles away from the mountain shrine.
Yeah, a significant geographical distance, especially, for the 1860s.
Definitely. Yet, on that very day, Don Bosco turns to the boys on the retreat with him in the mountains and informs them that he had just been present at Castelagner's bedside during the youth's final moments.
It's just staggering.
And the kicker from the source material is that the boy's father later confirmed it.
Right, the father goes on record.
He confirmed Don Bosco was physically there. I mean, I was trying to conceptualize how a 19th century mind processes this.
It's not easy.
No. And I keep coming back to a modern analogy as like a spiritual push notification or like a read receipt.
A read receipt.
You are sitting in your house in the middle of nowhere and a network pings you at the exact status of someone miles away.
What's fascinating here is how the historical record absorbs this supernatural claim without flinching.
It just logs it.
Right, it isn't logged by his followers as a metaphor or, poetic feeling of closeness.
Like I was with him in spirit.
Exactly, not that. It's logged as a literal event by location.
Being in 2 places at once.
Yes, he is claiming to be in 2 places at once. We have to look at the mechanism of how this is recorded. The phenomenon of the supernatural vision here, it's treated as a core operational reality of Don Bosco's life.
Just a normal Tuesday for him?
Basically, yeah. The isolation of the mountain retreat, which we just established as this very grounded place of physical rest, becomes the staging ground for an occurrence that completely defies the laws of physics.
It fundamentally breaks the standard timeline. I mean, it logs the unexplainable, as a matter of fact.
And if you are trying to understand the architecture of these historical institutions, you have to grapple with the fact that these mystical experiences, they were entirely real to the people documenting them.
Right.
He isn't just functioning as a priest or a teacher. He is operating outside the normal bounds of time and space. And his community accepts this as standard operating procedure.
Which honestly makes the ideological leap to our next day so incredibly jarring.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we have established this baseline of Don Bosco as a fluid mystic, right?
Yeah.
A guy bypassing geography on mountaintops.
Yeah.
But this reliance on being unbound by normal rules, it wasn't just a spiritual quirk. It created a very real vulnerability.
Because the world has rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you operate outside the normal bounds of reality, you need serious protection. Which brings us to July 18th, 1870.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we see a massive pivot.
A huge pivot.
We go from local personal mysticism to global institutional dogma. July 18th, 1870 is a monumental day for the global Catholic Church.
Pope Pius IX is presiding over the fourth session of the First Vatican Council.
Right.
And on this specific day, the council formally defines the dogma of papal infallibility.
A massive theological moment.
Massive. For anyone hazy on the theology, this is the declaration that the Pope, when speaking in his absolute official capacity on matters of faith and morals, is preserved from error.
It is the ultimate centralization of power.
Yep.
Defining a dogma is the heaviest administrative and theological mechanism the Church possesses.
It's not a suggestion.
No, not at all. It takes a belief and cements it into the rigid, unbreakable architecture of the institution. It is highly structured, intensely debated, and it leaves absolutely no room for fluid interpretation.
It is the ultimate establishment of boundaries.
Precisely.
And our sources note that Don Bosco had ardently desired this outcome for a long time. Like, he was absolutely
He's
thrilled.
a huge champion of it.
He really was. He celebrated the news with his boys, and one of his students, a guy named Paul Albera, even composed a hymn just for the occasion.
So they threw a party.
They essentially threw a massive party for a bureaucratic definition of authority.
Which is pretty funny when you think about it.
It is, but this is the friction point. I mean, how do we reconcile the Don Bosco of 1862, who is having these unbound, mystical visions where he's in two places at once?
Right, the bilocation.
With the Don Bosco of 1870, who is enthusiastically championing the most rigid, formal, administrative definition of absolute papal authority. They feel like diametrically opposed forces.
Well, they seem opposed if you look at them purely on the surface.
Okay, how so?
You have the subjective, unexplainable nature of the mystical vision on one hand, which, as you said, requires no committee and defies all rules.
Right.
And on the other hand, you have the highly structured history of formal church administration, which is entirely about rules.
Exactly, it's all rules.
But for a visionary figure like Don Bosco, they are deeply complementary. Mysticism provides the spiritual fuel, but the rigid institutional dogma provides the secure container for that fuel.
Oh, I see.
Without the rigid structure of the church's authority, personal mysticism can easily fracture into chaos or, be labeled as heresy by local critics.
Oh, wow. Okay, so he is essentially securing a spiritual patent on his unorthodox methods.
That's a great way to put it.
If the absolute top of the hierarchy is unquestionable, and he aligns himself directly with that top authority, then his own highly unusual, spiritually fluid operations have an unshakable anchor.
Precisely. By ardently supporting papal infallibility, Don Bosco is reinforcing the very institutional shield that validates and protects his own work.
He needs that shield.
He really does.
Yeah.
He needs the ultimate authority of the Pope to be ironclad, because, as we see in the very next entry on our timeline, the local authorities were actively trying to shut him down.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting, because if 1870 was about the theological heights of global dogma, July 18th, 1882 drags us right down into the gritty trenches of local church politics.
It gets very messy, very fast.
The source details a massive conflict resolution called the settlement, or the accompagnamento.
Right.
And this wasn't just like a friendly handshake over coffee. It was a mandate handed down directly by Pope Leo XIII.
And the secondism of the papal mandate is heavy.
Extremely heavy.
The fact that the Pope himself had to intervene to force a settlement tells you exactly how severe the friction had become
Yeah.
between Don Bosco's religious order, the Salesians, and the local leadership.
The local leadership being Archbishop Gastaldi. Our sources refer to him as the local ordinary.
Right, the ordinary.
And for some quick context for you listening, an ordinary in the Catholic Church is basically the regional governor.
Good analogy.
He's the guy on the ground whose entire job is maintaining standard operating procedures and local canon law within his diocese.
He's the rule enforcer.
Exactly. And he and Don Bosco were in a bitter feud. On this specific day, July 18th, Don Bosco writes a letter to the Archbishop formally returning 2 previous letters from 1877.
And why is he returning them?
Because in those 1877 letters, Archbishop Gastaldi had actually threatened Don Bosco with suspension.
Wow.
I have to say, we tend to romanticize religious figures, you know?
Oh, totally. We paint them in stained glass.
We assume they just floated on clouds of peace all day. But this sounds exactly like a tense corporate HR dispute.
It really does.
You have a visionary founder completely clashing with regional middle management who's quite literally trying to write him up.
I wouldn't call it just an HR dispute, though.
Fair enough.
The underlying mechanics are far more severe. In a corporation, if you clash with middle management, you might lose your job.
Right, or even get fired.
But in the 19th century Catholic Church, suspension for a priest means losing your spiritual license to operate.
That's huge.
It's an existential threat to his entire mission, his legitimacy, and, the communities he built. The stakes are eternal, not just financial.
So Gastaldi isn't just threatening his paycheck.
Exactly. Archbishop Gastaldi's job is the ledger, the rules, the timeline.
Right.
But a visionary like Don Bosco, as we saw back in 1862, is pulling resources, rapidly expanding his order, and claiming direct supernatural visions.
By locating.
Yeah, by locating. To a local administrator tasked with maintaining order, that level of unorthodoxy is a regulatory nightmare.
So Gastaldi tries to rein him in with threats of suspension, and Don Bosco literally mails the write-ups back.
Such a power move.
The way he ends his letter on this day is just incredible. He expresses his hope that their future efforts will be centered only on God's glory.
Wow.
It is polite, sure, but it is a profoundly firm, almost passive-aggressive way to end a bitter administrative feud. It's the 19th century equivalent of saying, as per my last email, let's just focus on the core deliverables.
It is brilliant administrative maneuvering, and it's backed by the ultimate authority.
Yes, the Pope.
But this raises an important question. What is the long-term impact on local church leadership when a visionary simply bypasses them?
That's the million-dollar question.
The accommodamento fundamentally restructured local power dynamics. By having the Pope intervene and force the settlement, it essentially bypassed local canon law.
It proved he couldn't be touched locally.
Right. It established that Don Bosco's visionary work had a direct line to the absolute top of the hierarchy, the very papal authority he cheered so hard for back in 1870.
Oh, it's all connected.
The local church infrastructure, represented by Gastaldi, they had to fundamentally adapt to the reality that they could no longer contain or suppress this movement.
He utilized the ultimate rigid structure of the Vatican to protect his fluid, unconventional methods on the ground.
Exactly.
That is strategic genius.
Yeah.
But, bypassing middle management, fighting these existential administrative battles, and building a global network, it takes an immense toll on a human being.
A heavy physical toll.
Which brings us to the final 2 entries in our July 18th log, where we see the physical consequences of that visionary life.
Right, we move into 1883 and 1885.
Where the scope of his influence has expanded dramatically, but his physical capacity is failing.
Yeah.
On July 18th, 1883, Don Bosco is no longer just fighting with local archbishops. He is functioning on the international stage.
A major leap.
The historical log notes that at 6 o'clock in the evening, Don Bosco and his right-hand man, Father Rua, arrived back at the oratory in Turin.
And where were they coming from?
They are returning from an urgent, exhausting mission to Frosdorf, Austria.
Austria.
Yeah, Don Bosco had been summoned to the bedside of the dying Count of Chambord, who was French royalty living in exile.
The contrast here is just staggering. Think back to 1862.
Exactly. In 1862, he was at the bedside of a local dying boy in Chieri through an unexplainable supernatural bilocation.
Right. He bypassed travel entirely.
He transcended physical reality to be there. But now, in 1883, he is at the bedside of dying Austrian nobility, and there is no bilocation.
No, he had to take the train.
He had to physically travel across borders to get there. He has become an international figure of immense authority, requested by the powerful, but he is bound by the brutal physical reality of international travel in the late 19th century.
The geopolitical reach of his influence has expanded from a teenager in his home region to exiled royalty in Austria.
It's massive.
But as you noted, the physical reality catches up with him.
Which perfectly sets up our final note, exactly 2 years later.
July 18th, 1885.
Yes, 1885. A letter arrives at the oratory from Bishop Philip Chiesa of Pinerolo.
And what does the letter say?
The bishop expresses fervent gratitude for Don Bosco's previous visits, but the primary purpose of the letter is an invitation. The bishop is offering his personal country villa to the aging saint to help him regain his failing health.
We have come entirely full circle.
So what does this all mean?
Well,
we started this deep dive in 1861 with a brief note about Don Bosco needing mountain air to restore his physical strength.
at the St. Ignatius Shrine, yeah.
And after tracking him across 4 decades, through mind-bending supernatural visions, through the global theological shockwaves of the Vatican Council cementing papal authority, through bitter existential disputes with local archbishops, and through international diplomatic bedside missions, we end in 1885 right back where we started.
Back to needing rest.
A frail man being offered a quiet villa because his physical body is finally giving out.
It is a remarkable synthesis of a complex life.
It really is.
When you evaluate these sources collectively, the true insight is the incredible duality they capture. The historical record refuses to let us put Don Bosco into a single, neat category.
You just can't box him in.
You can't. His life is split perfectly down the middle. On one side, you have the unexplainable, ethereal world of supernatural visions.
Defying the laws of physics to be at a dying boy's side in 1862.
Right. It is fluid, mystical, and completely beyond standard human comprehension.
But on the exact same calendar date in other years.
You have a man deeply entrenched in the tedious, highly documented, legally binding world of institutional administration.
Yeah.
He is celebrating the rigid architecture of dogma in 1870, and he is exchanging tense settlement letters to stave off the loss of his operational license in 1882.
It's quite the contrast.
What the sources show us is that generating true historical impact often requires both halves of that coin.
Both halves.
Yet, the visionary fire to see entirely beyond the rules and the bureaucratic stamina to survive the middle management trying to enforce them, he was a mystic who knew exactly how to file the paperwork.
A mystic who knew how to file the paperwork? That is the perfect distillation of this deep dive. It completely changes how you look at a simple calendar date.
It isn't just a timeline.
No, it's a collision of worlds. Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over today.
A little homework.
Exactly. We just tracked the mechanics of one man's life through a single, seemingly arbitrary date across 4 decades. So imagine if a future historian did that to you.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Right. If someone were to pull a historical log of one random date in your life, say July 18th across the last 40 years, what unexpected, contradictory story would it tell?
What a question.
Would it show a chaotic, messy mix of your highest, most unexplainable ideals right alongside your most frustrating, mundane, bureaucratic struggles? And would they see the hidden mechanisms connecting them, just waiting for someone to connect the dots? It certainly makes you wonder what you'll be doing next July 18th. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.